Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee for June 24th, 2025. My name is Kathy Daigle-Gammon, Councillor for District 1, Waverly, Fall River, Musquodoboit Valley. And with us today, our Legislative Assistant is Simon Ross Siegel. To my right is William Hetfield, our Solicitor, and to my left is Maggie McDonald, the Executive Director of Parks and Recreation. So we'll call the meeting to order and do our land acknowledgement that the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and the traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. So we will ask for approval of the minutes of April 17th, 2025 and June 11th, 2025. Can we do them together, Simon?
Yes, Chair, we can approve those together as one
Thank you very much. Is there a mover? Councillor Kent, a seconder. Councillor St. Amand. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Say aye. Motion is carried. Thank you. Approval of the order of business and the approval of additions or deletions. Mr. Clerk, do we have any additions or deletions?
Thank you, Chair. The Clerk's Office has not received any requests for additions or deletions as of this time. Pausing just to see if there's anything today.
Members of the committee, do you have any? Thank you. So we'll ask for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Steele, Councillor St. Amand. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you. Business arising out of the minutes, there are none. A call for declaration of conflict of interests. Seeing none. Motions of reconsideration, there are none. Motions of rescission, there are none. Consideration of deferred business, there is none. Notices of tabled matters, there is none. Correspondence, petitions, and delegations. Mr. Clerk, do we have any of the above?
Thank you, Chair. The Clerk's Office has not received any correspondence to circulate for this agenda meeting package.
Thank you so much. Petitions, there are none. Members, do we have any petitions? No. So presentations, 10.3.1, we do have a presentation on Municipal Construction Mitigation Fund for Small Business, and we welcome Duncan Robinson, Senior Policy Analyst with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, to come forward and present. And Duncan, I believe you do have a slide presentation as well. Thank you. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Awesome.
Fantastic. My name is Duncan Robertson. I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for Nova Scotia at the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. I'm also joined by our summer intern, Ian Scott, in the gallery, so seeing our advocacy firsthand is always good to see. What we want to really discuss today is construction mitigation, particularly looking at the financial side of things, so that financial support to small businesses. I will start off by saying that the HRM does great work on the non-financial side of things, so the communication, signage, etc. They're the only municipality in Atlantic to receive points for this in our Atlantic Municipal Report. So first off, I want to give you folks plenty of credit for that. But again, we want to discuss what we can do in addition, as other municipalities have done, particularly around that financial support. A bit of background, we are Canada's largest non-for-profit organization devoted solely to the needs of small businesses, representing over 4,200 members across Nova Scotia, 1,450 of which are based here in the municipality, representing solely small businesses, so between 1 and 10 employees are the majority of our members. We're nonpartisan, deal with all orders of government, represent all sectors in all regions, and are one member, one vote. A bit of a primer just on the state of small business in the province currently. So what you see here is our monthly Business Barometer's confidence index. And what we do is each month we ask our members their level of optimism in the short term being 3 months and long term being 12 months. Of course, we saw a significant dip during the Trump tariff situation and have not really seen a rebound yet, particularly in our long-term confidence ratings, which are still below pandemic levels. So framing that into the discussion of construction, of course, that adds a lot of uncertainty to a small business owner. How is it going to impact my business? How will it impact parking? How will it impact my staff even be able to get into the business? So really adding to an already uncertain time, and something that we think could be addressed through some financial support. And digging a little deeper, and also related to the construction side of things, is when we look at the main limitations on sales and production growth in Nova Scotia to our small business members is insufficient demand, both domestic or foreign, and that directly relates to the cost of doing business. So as the cost of doing business increase, you would expect you would hope your demand to increase at the same level or higher to stay afloat. And when we're adding barriers to accessing small businesses, again, like changing in traffic, parking, etc., we're adding to an already difficult situation for businesses. So looking directly now more at construction mitigation, the impact construction has on our members, and some policies we think could really support our members here in Halifax. So first off, across Canada, over 7 in 10 of our members have been impacted by construction in some way, be it major, moderate, or minor, and that's almost double than the result we got in 2018, where only 4 in 10 were impacted in some ways. And unfortunately, this isn't just one impact through the life of your business. Unfortunately, it's multiple disruptions. Over the past 5 years, over 3/4 of our members have been impacted in multiple ways. Of course, there's the operational, there's the financial impact of construction, but there's also emotional impact, with close to 1/4 of our members across Canada citing construction projects as causing significant stress to their business. So what do small businesses want? Ideally, they want to partner with the municipality to see some kind of financial support when they're impacted out of no fault of their own. It's not because of a business decision. It's not because of a staffing decision. It's because of large-scale construction projects that, of course, have some public money attached to them, and they would like to see some kind of support from the municipality. So they're not coming with, cap in hand asking for you to support every single business in the municipality, but really supporting those businesses most impacted by construction and really partnering with those businesses, really what we're hoping to see. A little deeper into the impact exactly. So the top impact we hear is dust, debris, noise disruption, etc. So if you're, let's say, you're running a restaurant, your patio is next to a construction site, you'll have a harder time filling that patio than you would otherwise. So you're not able to take full advantage of your footprint, and you're not able to get that revenue that you would either. So it's overall impacting the bottom line of a business. Also, the logistical disruptions. Again, consumers or customers having trouble accessing the business, speaking to that lack of demand concern. And on the financial side, just overall sales decreasing for 4 in 10 of our members, having to suffer additional expenses, the owner having to resort to use their own savings to help their business get through that period of construction, as well as taking on debt, which is the last thing we want to do coming out of the pandemic. So of course I spoke a lot nationally, but here's some kind of local flavor to touch on this issue. So members understanding that construction is for the good of the community. However, it is happening at an already difficult time for many small businesses. Some businesses concerned even if government understands the impact that these construction projects have on their business. And considering the last few years, there's the pandemic, high inflation, high uncertainty. Construction happens during the summer, which is also peak time for small businesses, tourism, etc. So that's definitely a concern that we've been hearing about. And the big word here is reasonable compensation for these small businesses, and kind of acknowledgement of the effects that construction has on their business. So this is by no means a pie-in-the-sky idea. Other municipalities have enacted construction mitigation funds. So for instance, in Montreal, they have 2 funds available right now. They have a financial assistance fund, which supports small businesses up to a maximum of $40,000 per fiscal year, and that's based on the calculation of year-over-year loss in gross profit. And to be able to be eligible in the first place, you have to at least provide proof that you've lost 5% in loss in gross profit and locate in eligible areas. Now, this was a good program, but we did even hear from our members in the city that there was some concern around the administration of it. There is a lot of admin burden to prove all this financial information. So the municipality brought forward a flat rate subsidy, which is a one-time $5,000 subsidy for small businesses who sell retail goods, rent products, and provide customer service or consumer services in person and are impacted for longer than 6 months by a large-scale construction project. That subsidy could be paid at the beginning of the construction project, and it's not necessary to provide that loss of profit, and they're currently going through a 3-year pilot. Now in Calgary, a similar program to that grant program in Montreal, they have the Main Streets Business Support Grant Pilot. So that's focused on 2 large-scale projects in the municipality around Miranda Loop and Bridgeland. And these eligible businesses, to be able to tap into a $5,000 grant, have to provide in-person sales, rentals, consumer services, etc. They have to operate a physical storefront and be located within a city block of that construction. And again, it's a $5,000 upfront grant. So what do we want to see in the HRM? There's kind of our 2 main asks are for staff to consider creating a feasibility study or report to see if the municipality was granted the authority to provide direct support by the province, that the city would first be able to do it or be interested in doing it and have that ability to kind of roll out that program. It would also give council an opportunity to have a more in-depth discussion on the financial side of construction mitigation. There's different options, property tax holidays, etc. So of course staff could provide alternatives as well and have that more fulsome discussion. And we would also like, of course, again, to provide this program, you would have to get the authority from the province. So we'd like council to resubmit its request in February 25th, 2020. I think that was a few councils ago, even a few governments ago, to request the province to provide that authority. In that request, there was a focus on marketing, but there's another part on that direct financial support on a construction mitigation fund. That's really what we would like to see. And again, of course, we've met with the province on this matter already. We've met with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Public Works. They're aware of this issue. They're aware of the solutions, but at the end of the day, they said it is on municipalities to bring this issue up. We have a request in to meet with the NSFM as well, so we're making our way around the province and think that Halifax, being its own charter, could really implement almost a pilot project for the rest of the province to see how it works. And at CFIB, of course, this program takes two to tango, so we're just trying to build the dance floor and see if the two parties are interested in partnering and rolling out this program, because we think it could really support small businesses during construction season, and again, when they're impacted out of no fault of their own. So that would be my presentation, and happy to answer any questions should you have them.
Thank you very much, Duncan. And just before we get to the questions, just to remind everyone that there is no standing motion at Council on construction mitigation. And Ashley Blissett from Planning and Development is here if there are any questions on what that report might contain. So we may be asking both some questions. So just with that further information, our first councillor for a question is Councillor Kent.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for coming in and sharing this. You're well versed in how to deliver as much information as possible. It is a lot to digest. Having said that, my main question is around the insufficient demand and industry sectors. What are you seeing as a trend in those sectors that are the most impacted? Some may or may not. Depends on what the service is that they're delivering. The other is, do you have any kind of data for Halifax specifically? I suspect, knowing and looking at all the cranes and that you see in the skyline from either side, we would probably have a huge area of the regional center right now. But I just wonder if you have data around that, around what's being impacted, what kind of businesses, and where would they generally be having the impact. Thank you.
Okay. So when we look at sector specific, so things like, your brick and mortar stores, as you can imagine, like hospitality, et cetera, retail, things like that. And when we talk about insufficient demand as well, you might have the same demand levels as you had last year, but that's not the demand you need to keep up with the cost of doing business. So that is a changing number. And in terms of Halifax specific data, on the construction mitigation points, I only have provincial, but I can provide that to the council, no problem. I do have specific data on the municipality that deals with kind of these indicators, which I'm happy to provide. I'd have to do a little digging, go through the data, but I can definitely provide that to council and meet with anyone who's interested, but also provide it to this committee as well.
Terrific, thank you.
No problem.
That's good for me for now.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Vice Chair Steele.
Thank you, Chair Daigle-Gammon, and thank you for the presentation. You mentioned one of your asks is resubmitting the letter to the province, and that you met with the province and they said that HRM is responsible. Were they suggesting that HRM should come back, even though a request has already been made? Or can you just elaborate a little bit more on how that meeting went and what was the receptivity to your proposal?
So in terms of the meeting, it is a meeting between the minister, so I won't give out anything. But look, the overall kind of discussion was, it's well and good that CFIB is presenting these issues and these solutions, et cetera, and they're getting the data from our members. But it is on the municipalities to bring that question to the municipality, and again share that there was that letter sent in the past. That would have been during the last Liberal government, so the minister wouldn't have been involved. But we've sent letters to the minister as well as local business improvement districts. So Spring Garden, downtown Halifax have all sent letters to the minister, I believe it was last year, calling for similar support. So there is kind of an understanding of the business community that that ask is out there. But again, the big thing is for the municipality and the SFM as a whole to come to the table and discuss that topic as well with the minister, as that's kind of the municipalities who would have to roll out that program. So I think that's a big key, making sure that everyone's at the table together to discuss this issue.
I think I have time. And I think you also mentioned the two programs that Montreal had. One was the flat 5,000. I think the Montreal program was just the public infrastructure. Are you also looking for construction mitigation? We have a lot of private construction taking place. Are you also looking for support around that as well? Can you speak a bit about, and then finally, we're in a very tight financial situation. How do you think we could fund this program?
Yes, so those are all very, very good questions. In terms of the public programs, of course, there would be, or the private development in Halifax, there would be some municipal funds attached to that, et cetera. So there would be some onus, we'd believe, but we don't want to add to the cost of building. Of course, that's a concern, but ensuring that there is that fund in place for small businesses. When we look at Calgary and how they fund it, it's through their capital budget. They've set a pot of money aside, and once that is completely used up, then they will go back and see if that pilot is successful and redo it. I don't have the exact amount off the top of my head on what they budget, but I can definitely get you that for sure, 100%.
Okay. Thank you. I'll come back.
Thank you, Vice Chair Steele. Councillor Cottle.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and my apologies for being a couple minutes late today. Having been the former director of a bid, I'm well acquainted with the issues that come with construction and the impacts on small businesses. And Councillor Steele, you asked a number of the questions I had on my list too around public versus private. What comes to mind is like looking at other options and ways to minimize we need some incentive to minimize the impact. Right? Like I think too often there's no incentive to do a construction project that doesn't shut down a sidewalk, or to minimize the timeline of a project, to expedite the construction to minimize the impact. I think there's a number of tools in the toolbox that we need to be looking at, but the financial compensation for projects, particularly public projects, I mean, it's an interesting idea. I mean, if it's on the private side, you would think that something like development fees could be part of a pot that could help provide some construction mitigation revenue. On the public side, I mean, we've been talking about parking fees, for example, right? And how that parking revenue gets put into a general revenue pot, but perhaps looking at the parking revenue in downtowns is something that could help fund a mitigation fund for construction projects. So I think there's lots of things that can be looked at here. My question would be for HRM staff around what are we looking at in the motion that's currently being approved for the staff report? What's in that staff report? What are we looking at? When is that due back? And the second question for HRM staff is an update on that letter. And where we did send a letter in 2020, has there been follow-up internally on that issue? Further conversations? Do we need to resubmit that letter, or is there an ongoing conversation already?
Welcome, Ashley.
Good morning, Ashley Blissett, Manager of Development Engineering, Planning and Development. So the motion was made by previous Councillor Machen in 2020, and it does talk about determining a method for creating a grant amount. Also considering a contribution of 1% of a project budget for HRM projects, as well as a mitigation reserve. So it's very similar to what Mr. Robertson is talking about. With respect to the 2020 letter, I don't believe that there's been follow-up at this time from HRM on that, probably just for a few reasons of where we've been in the last few years. But it is certainly something that while we're working through this report back to council, which is expected later this fall, that we would be addressing that or a path forward.
And so this report was based on a motion made from 2020?
Yes.
So that's 5 years later. That's a long time. So it's tracking for the fall? Okay, I was going to make a motion for an information report on the report, but okay, I'll trust that it's coming back in the fall. You know, when you have a change of council and such long timelines, council does lose sight of these things. So thank you for doing the presentation today and bringing the topic, you know, back up and putting it back on the radar. I'll leave it there then, and I'll look forward to seeing that report in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cuddle. Councillor St. Amand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm curious if there are elements in the coming staff report that, well, let me reverse engineer it. Are there elements of Duncan's presentation as presented that would not make an appearance in the staff report because they're entirely new and were not part of the original request?
We actually met with Mr. Robertson not too long ago, so we were expecting to use the discussion of that meeting, which is similar to the contents of this presentation here in the report, or bring it forward in the report that staff is working on right now. So,
okay,
yeah.
Related to that, and this is as much a question for staff as it would be for Mr. Robinson, is part of this exercise to determine trigger points that initiate the usage of mitigation fund? I mean, some projects are relatively short in nature, others are considerably more prolonged, and so how do you evaluate the effect on the business when looking at the short, medium, and long term for different types of projects, particularly with the complications of looking at public versus private?
Great. Great points. Absolutely. And we're not, talking about, paving roads and things like that. That wouldn't be included. It'd be like these large scale projects like we've seen. The Cogswell district would have been a great example. There was a business up on, I forget what street it is, near Brunswick, that did see a significant loss in revenue, and that's an exact option where that could have kind of went in. Of course, we want to be understanding that, particularly for small businesses, we don't want a lot of administrative burden attached to it, like we've seen in the larger scale support in Montreal. So that ability to, if you're within a geographic area for a project that's, so long, like in Quebec or in Montreal, where it's 6 months, like that's one option, right? And it'd be a 5,000 grant, so it'd be very small. And again, within the area, so not without the whole municipality, it would be within, a city block of that project. So it kind of restricts that to geography as well, which I think kind of speaks to your point. You don't, need to understand what size of project really taps into this. So I think there's one coming up on Windsor Street, right? That could be one where this taps into as well. I think that would be a great example too.
The one other question that I had was relating to the overlap of membership between Canadian Federation of Independent Business and the local business improvement districts. There are certainly commonalities, but there are stark differences as well. And I'm curious to know whether or not there's collaboration and cooperation occurring on the data front, so that you're mindful of the impacts to businesses that are not represented in your organization and vice versa, so that is given a certain amount of due thought in order to incorporate that into the recommendations that staff would bring forward.
Yes, we collaborate with BIDS, on an ongoing basis for sure. And again, like I said last year, both the Spring Garden Association and the Downtown Halifax Businesses Commission all sent letters in the same issue. So we speak pretty frequently. I've attended, HRM BID meetings in the past and definitely discussed that. On the data point, it would be interesting to see because we are able to kind of get down to the municipal level, but interested to see what others would have. But I know just from anecdotal discussions with the business improvement districts that this is on their radar. This is something they've been advocating for just as long as we have. So I think there's definitely some places where we can cooperate and have cooperated in the past for sure.
Thank you. I'll come back.
Thank you, Councillor St. Amand. Vice Chair Steele.
Thank you. I thought Councillor Kent was next. My question relates to, you mentioned parking as an issue and parking reductions, and I'm going to raise the thorny issue of bike lanes as well in this discussion. Can you speak to what you're hearing from your businesses? I know some of the research suggests that bike lanes actually contribute to businesses. So I'd like to hear, I'm particularly interested in the parking issues because I represent District 12, Clayton Park, Wedgwood, Beachville, Lakeside, Timberley. And I do hear from some of my residents, particularly in Clayton Park, that they're hesitant to go downtown because they feel there's limited parking to access the businesses and spaces where they'd like to undertake their leisure activities. So I'm very curious to hear from your perspective where that is, what you're hearing from your membership.
So, again, great points. We have heard kind of anecdotally, just speaking to members, that of course, construction in general is an issue. There are construction of bike lanes. There's traffic. Traffic is a concern for our members. But us being kind of a national organization, it's hard for us to take these kind of niche fights that some pop up in certain municipalities. But in the past, we have surveyed on like traffic, like you said. I don't think we have any data specifically to bike lanes, but that's something that we're always open to collaborate with staff, with councillors. If there's issues you want to consider us or for us to consider, we can definitely take that going forward. But from our membership, we have not received a direction one way or the other in terms of bike lanes. Yeah.
Okay. But parking, yes, just to be clear.
Parking in relation to construction, yes, that's one of the top concerns. Of course, you have to take away parking spots when there's roads closed or things like that, and that's a direct concern. And I think anything that has to do with lack of demand is something that small businesses are definitely sensitive to right now, and something to consider.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Steele. Councillor St. Amand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to build off of the concept of which types of businesses this impacts most directly. I mean, obviously the sensitivity of a small business is very different than a major construction project across the street from Walmart. So what are the ways that we can reasonably expect to affect this type of fund to be employed where there are such varying types of businesses with entirely different business models, and some, like the Walmarts of the world, have a degree of demand that's never going away, where other small businesses are certainly more impacted by the absence of parking or perceived absence of parking. Because I mean, when I go to the average big box store, I get my steps in just getting to the door, but if I can't park in front of my tiny little shop, I'm upset. It's a weird psychological break. So what are the impacts to businesses of different sizes that have different levers that they can pull on to exercise changes in demand, and how does that relate to how the fund would be employed?
So I think the best examples are that flat rate subsidy in Calgary and in Montreal, where you have to be a brick and mortar store providing in-person sales of or rentals or services, and being again within that geographic area of construction, large scale construction downtown, you're a good chance you're going to cover a lot of small businesses. But I know past discussions at council, I think when I first started at CFIB, there was the discussion on how do we define a small business. So of course there's that kind of groundwork that I think has to be done at the municipal level for sure. But by looking at other examples, jurisdictional scans show that, again, in Calgary and Montreal, that's really what they're going with, and they're very similar eligibility, which would kind of assume, I don't want to assume, but maybe assume that that's kind of the direction to go. But again, that's totally up to staff, and I think definitely shows the need to have a really in-depth discussion here at your committee as well as council, and something that small businesses I know would definitely welcome having this on the radar again.
Right. Seems like there would be a core group in the middle, and then you'd have edge cases that would have to be looked at in order to determine eligibility. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor St. Amand. I don't see any other, excuse me, councillors on the list. Would you indulge me to ask a question from the chair? So Duncan, thank you for the presentation. Based on what we've heard also about the upcoming staff report that's going to come, do you feel that your request will be satisfied by what might come in that report? And I'm sure that you'll be here when it comes forward.
I'll absolutely be here when it comes forward. I don't want to kind of preempt the result. Of course, we'd like to see the report before we say we'll be in support or not, but full credit. I mean, we've met with staff, super open to meeting with us, and I think we're going to see a lot of our recommendations reflected in there, hopefully. Also open to consult on the development of the report or any kind of issues that you need to discuss. We're always open to staff and elected officials like yourselves. Happy to discuss as this issue goes forward, and definitely looking forward to the fall. Great.
Thank you so very much. Thank you again for the presentation and being here. And again, nice to see you. Thank you, Ashley, for helping fill in the rest of the dots. And the dance continues, as you say, Duncan. Thank you, everyone. So our next item on the agenda is public participation. It doesn't look like we had anyone sign up in advance.
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that we have not received any pre-registered speakers as of this time.
Thank you, Simon. And so we will ask, though, 3 times if there is anyone in the gallery that would like to speak for public participation. For the second time, is there anyone from the gallery that would like to speak? And for the third and final time, is there anyone from the gallery that would like to speak? Seeing none, we'll now move on then to item 12 is information items brought forward. There are none. And we get to reports. And our next presentation or report is 13.1.1, which is the update of People, Planet, Prosperity, Halifax Inclusive Economic Strategy.
Thank you, Chair. I'll also just note that there is a handout for this item that I will go ahead and pass that around just now.
Thank you very much, Simon. So we get to welcome Wendy Luther, President and CEO of the Halifax Partnership. And I do see our CAO, Kathy O'Toole. Thank you, Simon. And it does say that we have Jake Whalen, Senior Advisor of Economic Policy and Development here, and Scott Sheffield, Policy Strategist, Government Relations and External Affairs. Do we do the motion first?
Wendy's just getting our presentation up. Wendy's going to be the driver of our slides today.
If you would like me to. Thank you so much. Well, good morning. I'm Wendy Luther with Halifax Partnership, Halifax's public-private economic development organization. And as you can see, I'm joined today by CEO Kathy O'Toole. Thank you for this opportunity to provide an update on the progress against deliverables of People, Planet, Prosperity, Halifax's inclusive economic strategy for 2022 to 2027, with a focus on activities and outcomes from April 1st, 2024 to March 31st, 2025. Halifax Partnership and HRM co-lead People, Planet, Prosperity. In March 2024, Regional Council approved the year's 3 to 5 action plan, which we have been implementing together with public, private, post-secondary, and community partners. Halifax's inclusive economic strategy has a vision of a prosperous, growing Halifax that puts the well-being of people and planet first, with the goal of increasing the region's GDP to $34 billion and population to 650,000 by 2037. We also track shorter-term economic goals to 2027. The strategy is supported by 3 5-year strategic goals and 17 5-year objectives, which are supported by 60 actions in years 3 to 5. Of the 60 actions, 38 are led by HRM, 17 by Halifax Partnership, and 5 are co-led by both organizations. The report in your package highlights strategy implementation to date. I'll acknowledge at the outset that in addition to HRM, Halifax Partnership is funded and supported by the Province of Nova Scotia, the Government of Canada, and 100 private sector and post-secondary investors. We couldn't do our work to strengthen Halifax's economy without this collaboration. Today, the CAO and I will provide an overview of key highlights and answer any questions you may have. First, as we can see on this slide, we now have over 500,000 residents in Halifax, and our labor force continues to grow. Halifax's GDP grew by 2.6%, and of note, 99% of Nova Scotia's GDP growth was right here in HRM. Based on these numbers, our 2027 growth goals are within reach. Finally, and very importantly, our well-being metric improved, with a smaller share of survey respondents giving a low score when asked to rate life satisfaction. Halifax Partnership reports on progress towards our economic strategy goals through the Halifax Index. Now in its 14th year, last week we launched the 2025 Halifax Index presented by TD, and thank you to those of you and members of council who were able to join us. The index, the economic dashboard, which provides the most up-to-date statistics on Halifax's economy, and the economic atlas, an interactive map-based tool offering in-depth data about various areas in Halifax Regional Municipality, are all available at halifaxpartnership.com. And now I'll pass the floor to the CAO.
Thank you, Wendy. The Halifax Partnership is a key collaborator in delivering our economic strategy, and I want to acknowledge the strength of our relationship. That's one of the reasons that Wendy and I co-present on these updates. HRM and the partnership are working closely to address the challenges and opportunities presented by a growing city, from housing and infrastructure to workforce development and quality of life. Today, I'll focus on HRM's implementation of the strategy across our 3 core goals. The first is enabling housing growth, delivery, and acceleration. Housing continues to be one of the most urgent challenges facing Halifax. It's a top priority for Regional Council and a daily concern for residents. Through the Housing Accelerator Fund, we've issued over 6,000 permits in year 1, 39% of our 3-year target. In the past 2 years, HRM has added significant housing capacity, helping to meet growing demand and support affordability. We've modernized permitting systems, reduced the upfront fees, and launched a trusted partner program, which streamlines approvals for developers with a strong compliance record. We're proud to share that HRM was recently recognized by the Canadian Home Builders Association in their 2024 National Municipal Benchmarking Study. We jumped from 8th place in 2022 to 2nd in approval timelines, achieving the best improvement of all benchmarked municipalities, with a reduction of 11 months in overall timelines. Looking ahead, we're launching a service excellence framework to further improve predictability, efficiency, and customer service experience in our approvals process. And on the homelessness file, HRM has taken a proactive role working with our provincial partners and also with third parties, which has resulted in a reduced number of encampments and has resulted in improved timely access to shelter and housing. From the perspective of planning and policy and how we enable housing growth, planning and policy are foundational to enabling smart, sustainable housing growth. The Phase 4 Regional Plan Review has received Council approval and has now advanced to the province for final approval to implement new provincial housing requirements. Phase 5 of the Regional Plan will move forward in coordination with the municipality's Strategic Growth in Infrastructure Priorities Plan, ensuring that the necessary infrastructure will be in place to support a growing region. We're prioritizing suburban planning to address immediate growth pressures, while also investing in long-term rural planning through a groundwater study in partnership with Dalhousie University. Special planning areas are one of the tools in our broader approach to master planning for growth, and these provincially designated zones accelerate planning and development to meet urgent housing needs. Of the 16 designated special planning areas, 8 have received approvals or are under construction, with the remainder in progress. Strategic infrastructure and land readiness are key to supporting Halifax's continued growth, and the Cogswell District is now 85% complete, with a new transit hub operational and the final phase underway. The Windsor Street Exchange is progressing through the design-build phase, with early construction work targeted for 2025. The Mill Cove Ferry project has completed site and environmental studies. These projects will improve mobility, unlock development potential, and enhance public spaces. We're also updating the industrial employment land strategy to ensure we have a long-term supply of land for job creation and tax-based growth. These investments are about building the foundation for a thriving, connected, and resilient city. Indigenous economic development has also been an area of focus, and in terms of our engagement with the Indigenous communities, HRM undertook an Indigenous service review this past year and is finalizing an Indigenous service strategy. We're also supporting Indigenous business development through partnerships that provide access to investment, training, and digital tools. A key milestone this year was HRM's support for a reimagined Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center. We also amended the center plan and land use bylaw to accommodate Indigenous cultural expression and institutional use, which is an important step in reconciliation and in inclusive planning. And I will now hand it back to Wendy.
Kathy. Led by the community, the African Nova Scotian Road to Economic Prosperity, known as REP, is a 5-year plan addressing systemic and historic barriers to improve economic and quality of life outcomes for African Nova Scotians. Last year, significant progress was made in addressing historic land and zoning issues in ANS communities, including the restoration of Beachville's historic community boundaries and improving important zoning changes for Upper Hammonds Plains that will help preserve the community's historic character. These changes were approved by Regional Council in the last year. Also, a notable milestone last year was REP's launch of the first ever African Nova Scotian Prosperity and Wellbeing Index. The ANS Index provides statistical data on Black Nova Scotians across 6 key areas and includes community recommendations for future policy and program development aimed at closing economic and societal gaps and inequalities. Halifax remains a highly sought-after location for business investment and growth. Through a collaborative Team Nova Scotia approach, the team supported 10 companies in locating or growing in HRM, resulting in over 1,300 expected jobs. Companies like Kainos, a digital technology company headquartered in Belfast, Northern Ireland, that specializes in tech services to the public sector, commercial, and healthcare customers. The Partnership Smart Business team met face-to-face with 392 HRM businesses, including 92 rural-based businesses, supported by our dedicated Rural Smart Business Account Executive. Through 750 referrals to partners, our team connected businesses to the expertise and resources they need to overcome challenges and pursue growth opportunities. The top concerns heard from businesses were tariff impacts, supply chain and logistics issues, difficulty finding, attracting, and retaining employees, frustrations with immigration restrictions and rules, business tax burdens, and inflationary pressures on business costs in general. Our Smart Business team is helping HRM businesses navigate the Canada-US trade dispute and mitigate economic impacts by diversifying markets, supply chains, and revenue sources. This includes leveraging Halifax's sister city international partnership with Portsmouth, England, to strengthen economic and business ties through virtual and in-person trade events with companies in both regions. I'll now pass the floor back to the CAO.
The economic strategy intends to grow HRM's population to 525,000 and increase the labor force by 310,000 by 2027 by attracting workers to Halifax from across Canada and around the world, welcoming immigrants and connecting them to best-in-class settlement services, removing systemic barriers to employment, and preparing business to meet future work needs. And that includes preparing our own municipal business. HRM is committed to being an employer of choice, one that reflects the diversity and values of our community. We're advancing equity-focused recruitment through targeted job fairs, employment circles, and barrier reduction initiatives. We're also implementing our immigration attraction and retention plan, which supports international talent attraction, newcomer integration, and inclusive hiring practices. We're attracting newcomers by providing immigration guidance and support for employees who are eligible to apply for permanent residency through the Nova Scotia Nominee Program and the Atlantic Immigration Program. Our accessibility strategy, approved by Regional Council, outlines 30 actions to improve accessibility across transportation, built environment, communications, and employment. And our social value framework is guiding procurement decisions that support equity and community benefit. Internally, we're investing in mentorship and leadership development programs, and these efforts are all helping us build a workforce that is skilled, inclusive, and hopefully ready for the future.
Kathy, Halifax Partnership plays a key role in helping local employers attract, retain, and develop talent to build a strong and sustainable workforce that supports business success and economic growth now and in the future. Presented by RBC and supported by the province of Nova Scotia, our award-winning Connector program strengthens Halifax's workforce by connecting businesses with skilled talent while helping newcomers and young professionals grow their networks and build meaningful careers in our city. Last fiscal, the partnership welcomed over 220 new connectors and 650 newcomer and young professional connectees to the Halifax Connector program. Over 315 connectees found career jobs with employers in HRM, and this program really does change lives, both for the individuals seeking employment and those that hire them. Our labor market team enables employers to meet workforce needs by hiring international talent through the Atlantic Immigration Program, Nova Scotia Nominee Program, and Global Talent Stream. In addition, Halifax Partnership managed the IRCC-funded Strengthening Employer Feedback Channels project, one of 9 in Canada, to collect insights from employers and inform government and organizational strategies on immigration and workforce development.
HRM plays a key role in making Halifax a better place to live, work, and play by leading and supporting initiatives and enhancing environmental resiliency, expanding access to arts, culture, and recreation, improving mobility access across the region, and strengthening the vibrancy of downtown, main streets, and rural centers. These efforts reflect HRM's commitment to creating a city where quality of life and economic opportunity go hand in hand. We're building a more connected Halifax, one that's accessible, sustainable, and ready for the future. We've completed 60% of the AAA bikeway network, with more segments under construction, recognizing we've had a lot of discussion lately on the triple bike lane network, and that, it's all subject to future council discussion. Major corridors projects like Robie Street, Portland Street, and Windmill Road are also advancing, which will lead to improvements in safety and mobility. Electric buses are now in service, and EV charging infrastructure is expanding across municipal sites. In Dartmouth, we've launched planning and consultation for a revitalization strategy focused on the waterfront and public space improvements. Streetscaping is guided by a 15-year long-term plan with recent and upcoming projects on Spring Garden Road, Dutch Village, Brunswick Street, and others. These investments are transforming how people move through and experience our municipality. And we're focused on making Halifax a great place to live, work, and visit. The Integrated Tourism Master Plan 2030 is being led by Discover Halifax, with HRM providing financial and in-kind support. HRM staff have participated in consultations and are helping align the plan with municipal priorities. The final plan will come to council later this summer for approval. We've expanded the Affordable Access Program this year, making it easier for residents to access transit, recreation, and municipal services. And finally, cultural initiatives like the Cogswell Storytelling Strategy are helping us celebrate our shared history and identity. these efforts are about building a city that's inclusive, welcoming, and full of opportunity.
Co-created in partnership with 22 senior business leaders and HRM's Halifax team, the CEO Climate Action Charter supports these signatories in demonstrating climate leadership with their organizations and our community. A CEO Climate Action Charter Summit is being planned for October 30th, 2025, to provide a platform for business leaders to explore climate strategies and solutions, share best practices, successes, and demonstrate their leadership in climate action. And in conclusion, thank you for this opportunity to present highlights from Halifax's inclusive economic strategy. You can read more about progress from last year in Halifax Partnership's 2024-2025 annual report and the 2025 Halifax Index presented by TD, available on our website at halifaxpartnership.com. Thank you. The CAO and I look forward to answering your questions, and we hope that you'll join us at our upcoming events this fall listed on the screen. And I'd also like to acknowledge that we have Ross Jefferson and his team are very close partners with Discover Halifax in the room. And thank you to you, Ross, and your team for all of your collaboration.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Kathy. Our first councillor with a question is Councillor Cottle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would you like me to put the motion on the floor? Okay. I move that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee, 1, receive the staff report dated May 27th, 2025 for information and receive a presentation from the Halifax Partnership regarding People, Planet, Prosperity, Halifax's inclusive economic strategy, and 2, forward the staff report dated May 27th, 2025 to Regional Council for information.
Councillor Steele had the second.
All right. Thank you. And always wonderful getting an update on our economic strategy and seeing some of the amazing things that we're managing to achieve. You know, I've always been a big fan of the People, Planet, Prosperity strategy and its goals, particularly in how it's looking at the municipality as a whole and how all the pieces fit together. So congratulations on that. I have a couple questions about specific questions and kind of more general questions. One is about us being recognized for the improvements we've made in terms of permitting and housing approvals. I forget the name of the program that gave us the recognition in 2024, but you mentioned that we went from being benchmarked at 8 and moved significantly up to, did you say number 1?
Second in approval term lines, but we were the most improved in terms of we achieved the best improvement across all municipalities.
Right. That's amazing. And that's a true reflection of the hard work that's being done within HRM and with our staff in resolving, you know, things that had been flagged a number of years ago of you know, saying where we needed to improve. What I wonder about, and this is just more of a general discussion, but where do you think the disconnect lies between the general public perception on how we're doing with these things, what industry leaders are saying in terms of, you know, I constantly hear we need to do better, when really when you look across the country, we're benchmarking really well. And you know, so an HRM metrics on permits and approvals, like, why is that? Why is there a general dissatisfaction out there in public perception around how we're doing in this regard? Why do you think?
I will not speculate, but I will offer that in my experience, you know, satisfied customers rarely take the time to write a post on social media, call 311, send an email, you know, to reflect that they received positive service. What you hear from is the customer who is dissatisfied with service. And notwithstanding, we're meeting our service level targets on processing different types of applications. There may still be frustration from a customer with respect to the process or the timeline, or there may be a perception, or I shouldn't say a perception, a lack of awareness that the processes that a person has to go through at HRM are not that different from what you go through in a municipality, any other municipality in Canada, and in fact may be a lot better than what you go through in another municipality. So those are my observations on that.
Right. Like, I'm wondering how we can do better in kind of explaining this, because I mean, we still hear from the province that there's dissatisfaction with these things too, when actually, you know, in terms of measuring our performance, we're doing really well. So perhaps further conversation on that. My other question was related to the Trusted Partner Program and how that's going. And you said that a number of people have been approved under that program for kind of fast-tracking development approvals. I'm wondering how many people apply to that program, how many people are approved, and how many people are you know, sent back, either denied or sent back to do more work.
That is something I do not have information on with me. I'm not sure if we have any planning and development friends in the room. But I do believe there is a report coming forward to council soon that will include some updates on the status of that.
Okay, that's great. I'll come back with my other questions. Thank you again.
Thank you, Councillor Cuddle. Vice Chair Steele.
Thank you, Chair Daigle Gammon, and thank you for the uplifting presentation. The message I received is Halifax is not broken, despite what sometimes we hear. So that's excellent. I too had questions about the Trusted Partner Program. I think that sounds excellent, and so I'm very anxious to know how many participants are there. Are they all the people that are applying? Are they deemed to be eligible or provided with support to improve their capacity to become eligible? So looking at that, very encouraged by the reduced number of encampments, and I've been hearing from residents that they're more comfortable being in parts of the city because of the reduced number of encampments and the reduced tents around in random places as well. So it does appear like the strategy is working. The provincial and municipal strategy is working really well. So very encouraged. I have a question, couple of questions more for Wendy. You mentioned supply chain and logistics issues. Can you just elaborate a bit on that? I was hoping we were getting past some of that, sort of, I'll say, post-pandemic. So maybe you can just speak a bit to some of that. And then the other is the retention of immigrants. You know, at one point, Halifax and Nova Scotia was a province where immigrants came, they landed here and then moved on to other larger centers. I know the Atlantic Immigration Pilot, and I know many groups like the Partnership and others, ISANS, many nonprofit partners have done a lot of work to retain our immigrants and retain them for the jobs of the future. So I'd really like to know how we're doing on that retention. And I have other questions, so maybe I better ask this really quickly because it's not committee of the whole. The groundwater study with Dow for rural, I'm kind of interested in that one. Just a little bit about what is that? When might we get the results on that? Because groundwater is so important. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Through the chair to Vice Chair Steele, thank you for your questions. So through COVID, we had clearly acute supply chain challenges, both in terms of increasing expenses in shipping, which has been very volatile since the onset of COVID to now as a result of global instability and wild swings in logistics costs for any businesses importing and exporting goods. So that, coupled with retaliatory tariffs in the U.S., is really motivating our Halifax businesses to find other channels for goods. And henceforth this mission to Portsmouth, UK, and our increasingly tight collaboration with our sister cities to find those other channels to alleviate the pressure on our historic trade ties. So that's a piece. So on retention and immigrants, and congratulations to ISANS on their AGM this week. Again, Nova Scotia has the highest immigrant retention rates of any province in Atlantic Canada, but more work to be done. Of all of the economic headwinds on the horizon, immigration and changing policies impacting international students is one of the most concerning. So since the changing policies, federal immigration policies, the pipeline of new immigrants has been greatly decreased, both because of the policies around bringing new immigrants and international students here and the bad PR resulting in these ever-changing policy changes, which means that we have to be more successful than ever before in retaining the people who are already here. There are some significant challenges that have yet to be resolved around international student grads and newcomers who are here, who are having serious challenges getting their postgraduate work permit or getting work permits renewed. These are people who are already contributing to our economy. They're living here, they're working here, and they've been caught in limbo. So, you know, we in conversations like this and with the mayor, with our provincial and federal partners, having respectful conversations around Halifax continues to grow. Our workforce continues to grow. We continue to need people. We here in Halifax and Nova Scotia have a different environment and reality than maybe in the GTA and Vancouver and elsewhere in Canada. So a one-size-fits-all approach is not working for us in terms of federal immigration policy. So I thank you for being live to these topics, and from a human perspective and an employee perspective, you know, we have individuals who've come here to study or come here to work based on a plan and an ability to work, and that rug has been yanked out from under them. So it is in play now, and more work to do to resolve some of these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you.
With
Councillor,
respect, the other question regarding the groundwater study. So the groundwater study for rural in partnership with Dalhousie University was just initiated in the fourth quarter of 2025. So the end of the fiscal year that has just completed. And those kind of studies do take a while. It needs to be completed in order to feed into the Strategic Infrastructures Priority Plan, which now is about 18 months out, I would say, and the Phase 5 regional plan. So I don't anticipate there's probably anything coming back to council by the end of this fiscal year. I would suspect it's a next fiscal year thing.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Vice Chair Steele. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Wendy and Kathy, for this. This is a great reminder of what we may not be getting out to our public in a way that is really have any impact. Because frankly, what I heard when you first started this presentation was that there's a low score of life satisfaction. And I'd just like to hear a little more about that. But for sure, we have people who are living in this area, and no doubt, I think, around the world, that there's so much negativity, you know, around jobs, around housing and homelessness, around the construction impacts. It's an interesting thing because it's really such a cluster of frustrations that pull out the negativity around whether or not Halifax is a good place to live. I still hear it. I hear it all the time as a councillor, and as my colleagues have said, we're really actually doing really well on so many things. there's a very cynical layer of the population that get their message out, as so it was spoken about. But that low score of satisfaction, and I don't know if you can even speak to this, but I believe strongly that also the environment in the USA is affecting all Canadians right now more than ever before. No one is enjoying watching the news with all of that negativity that continues to bombard us and the world, really. It has to be affecting all of that layer of life satisfaction. So I'd like you to zone in on that particular comment to help me understand, am I thinking about it the way that it was said, or is it something else? The second piece, before I stop and wait for an answer, is our scorecard, and all of these pieces we need to get that information out there. And I wonder if anyone has given any thought to, and this, I say this quite regularly, Kathy, you may have heard me say it, but can you speak to perhaps a campaign with us as counselors, through our newsletters, through our social media platforms? We are connected to the public. People are watching everything we do. We try very hard to communicate as many things as we can. But there's such a gamut of success in the scorecard that I wonder if there's a way for you folks to help create a campaign to help us get the message out through our networks, because I think they're often very, very untapped. So thank you.
Through the chair to Councillor Kent. So I and my colleagues at Halifax Partnership are wildly optimistic about the future of Halifax. We are growing like never before. We are having some growing pains because people want to be here. They want to move here, they want to live here, they want to open businesses here. And I appreciate when you're in the day-to-day and you have just spent more time in traffic than you're used to, your street is under construction, your rent has gone up. Like, these are real challenges for real humans, and we need to acknowledge that. We're a great place to live. Yeah. And when we are welcoming people from all over the world, they are blown away, and they're blown away at Halifax's progress and momentum and the energy. And it is important to celebrate that and to share that optimism and keep that urgency around addressing the challenges that our residents are facing. I believe we need to be laser focused on addressing the congestion, on addressing the housing, and at the same time we can be optimistic around why what the potential is when we get on the other side of some of these challenges. Councillor, you mentioned specifically our well-being measure. So we've included a top-line well-being measure in People, Planet, Prosperity because as economic developers, ultimately we do our job to grow the economy to make residents' lives better. So in this last year reporting period, the share of residents that we surveyed who self-report having a poor quality of life fell, which is a good thing, a smaller percentage. So it fell to 19.1% of residents saying that they self-reporting as a poor quality of life from last year, where 22.1%. Now last year we were floods, wildfires, wars breaking out. There was a lot of tent encampments. There was a lot of reasons to not feel great. But we're doing slightly better this year, so it's a move in the right direction. Also heartening is that the share reporting either a high or very high life satisfaction rose from 58.3% in 2024 to 62.8% in 2025. So again, of course, we would like everyone in Halifax reporting a high level of life satisfaction. And that's why we're so focused on the bottom, the bottom percentage, those that are not doing well, but the numbers have been moving in the right direction this last year. And yes, to those sharing these positive messages, a big part of our work is selling Halifax, to promote it to business and talent, to bring them here, to keep them here. And we look forward to sharing those messages with you, to share with your constituents about those bright lights. There are many.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, I'd like to add to Wendy's answer, just to kind of put a slightly different spin on it. I would argue that the geopolitical, social, and affordability challenges in the last year have been worse than the previous year. Notwithstanding that, the percentage of people reporting high or very high life satisfaction rose by 4.5%, from 58.3% in 2024 to 62.8% in 2025. Wow. And I do believe that when you think about what has gone on different locally between those 2 years, Wendy correctly observed, we had no fires, we had no floods. Yeah. That's always a good thing. No emergency events. We've made headway on the homelessness file. And I think there's a perception of headway being made on the affordability issues too, with respect to HRM Council choosing to hold the tax rate flat last year, this current fiscal year, and also some of the initiatives that the provincial government has brought forward that are designed to target affordability concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Cottle.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And Councillor Kent, that I was thinking the same thing. You know, when we came up with People, Planet Prosperity, it was really about seeing prosperity across the municipality. And I was reading an article recently about kind of the general sentiment around in North America, Canada, and the US around actually feeling a benefit, the average person feeling a benefit from all this growth. So while we're kind of kicking it out of the park in terms of our metrics, I think there are real questions about how's that trickling down? Is it trickling down? And are we seeing the lift, not just in perception of how people feel about their quality life, but actual real metrics on, and you did mention, the poverty, the decrease in the poverty as one metric, but I think this extends not just to our lowest income households, but it's also, as we've been seeing, kind of extending into our middle income households as well, as people feeling they have less financial stability, less the cost of living is having a squeeze on everywhere and on everyone except for what we see in the top tier. And I think to be true to our strategy, that is something that we need to take very seriously. I know I don't have, it's my second time talking, and my last question, so I'm just going to mention two other things quickly. One is about the industrial land, and you mentioned that we're trying to create more land for industry. Ragged Lake Industrial Park. Is there any update on what's happening there and where we are in that process of moving Ragged Lake Industrial Park forward? And the other one is you're mentioning major corridor projects, and I just want to give a shout out to Robin, one of our engineers who was in Spryfield last night, gave a presentation at the Spryfield Community Association on the Herring Cove Road major corridor project, which is so desperately needed to address issues around transit, just simply getting people to work. And this infrastructure is I think a key component of our economic plan. And so I'm glad to hear that's moving forward. But also if you could talk about a little bit about how that's being funded, because the costs of that have gone up so significantly. And when we look at these major corridor projects, they're not inexpensive. They're transformational and they're not inexpensive. And so, how are we going to fund all this? Thank you.
Okay, I just want to make sure I've captured your questions. The first one was status of the industrial land supply work and Ragged Lake Industrial Park. Your second is around the major corridor projects and how we're going to fund them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And a general question around cost of living.
Okay. Perhaps I'll ask Wendy to take the cost of living one, and I'll then come back with the other two.
Thank you, through the chair to Councillor Cuddle. So I'll follow up with the exact cost of living. So we have some data showing that was included in the index that purchasing power of our residents is improving. So as inflation is slowing and salaries, wages are improving at a faster rate, that gap has narrowed. So we are, in fact, in this last year showing financial gains on the aggregate for Halifax. Also, to your point around perception that we're doing worse than we are, maybe the numbers are good, the numbers are solid on the aggregate. Rebecca Young, economist with Scotiabank, wrote a fascinating article called earlier this year called Defining the Doomers, and we hosted her last fall for an event and a talk on this, which I'll share that article with you. And it really gets at the crux of nationally, we are richer than ever before. However, our sentiment of our consumer, our business confidence is going down. And this is a pattern repeated in countries around the world, and it is changing governments. And so it's a fascinating conundrum. Now, I always want to acknowledge that individual humans are not on the aggregate. And an individual human having a challenge meeting their needs, their basic needs, they're paying rent, finding employment, that is incredibly important. When you average it all out, our economy has been quite strong, other than our productivity. So I'll share that article with you. It has at least some clarification points, if not clear answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. On the industrial land supply inventory, corporate real estate procured and commenced an update to the 2020 Industrial Employment Land Strategy. The updated strategy will include a revised assessment and forecast of the industrial employment land needs, which would include Ragged Lake, supporting our goals for population growth and economic prosperity, and also, the provision to be able to expand and grow the commercial tax base. The completion of this work is actually targeted for this summer of 2025. And per our most recent performance reporting, it is on track. So council, I would expect, should see something in the fall on this. With respect to major corridor projects, so council just received an update at the last council meeting on Roby Street. That was an information report. We are also planning a number of council reports on July 8th, at the July 8th council meeting, which will kind of have a transportation theme. And you will be receiving some information then. Particularly our future bus rapid transit. Understanding the bus rapid transit plans, proceeding with that has an impact on the corridor projects and what funding may become available to us to support construction of the corridors and bus rapid transit together. So, of course, one thing we're waiting to see is, with the federal election now concluded, but a federal budget not yet tabled, we're not certain what new funding programs may be available coming that we would be eligible to apply for. So that's a piece of information we're waiting on. Another big piece of information we're waiting on is the release of the province's regional transportation plan through the JRTA/Links Nova Scotia. We certainly do know that since the original plan, the integrated mobility plan or our major corridors plans were developed, the assumption on how we would fund some of that work was that the municipality was funding it and there was a reserve strategy put in place to do it. Of course, everything's more expensive these days because the value of land only increases. But the good news is, compared to when that strategy was first envisioned, we do have the provincial government coming to the table as a partner and helping us fund things. So we've been doing that on a transaction by transaction basis through discussion with the province. But it's my hope that we'll eventually get to a more stable and predictable, commitment for what funding shares will be from other levels of government for the completion of the remainder of the plan.
Thank you. I mean, so important when you look at the growth, the economic growth all happening here in the city, or the majority of it happening here in the city, that these investments and support from the province is so important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cuttle. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In consideration of the motion, I wonder if I can offer a friendly amendment if the mover's open to it. In number 2, forward the staff report to Regional Council and present to this presentation to Regional Council. So wherever that would fit best for the wording. But a presentation to Council is always, I think, the right thing to do with this.
So, Councillor Cuttle and Steele, would you consider that
If it's
friendly
a
amendment?
friendly, yeah.
Yes.
I consider that friendly and a good recommendation.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Steele as a second, do you consider that?
I thought the same thing, but the first part of the motion does receive the staff report for information and receive a presentation from the partnership. So the
that
first,
was for CPED. That was for this meeting.
okay, that's just, okay, yes, definitely a presentation. Yes, sorry, Beck.
I would just caution just to, that may be something that would be for regional council's agenda review just to consider in terms of like their responsibility to determine whether a presentation will be scheduled or not. I think that's certainly within regional council's ability to do so, and if not, there was always the opportunity to, after they receive the information report, make a request for the item to be brought forward for discussion. Just mindful of, yeah, I think that would probably be better as a recommendation for presentation.
Yeah, okay. Let's make that wording happen.
So, Mr. Clerk, are you editing
the motion?
I am editing the motion just now.
Excellent.
Thank you.
While we wait, Councillor Cuttle, did you have your mic still on? No, good.
No.
Great. So we'll just take a quick moment and see what we're going to have on the screen. Oh. Yeah, I'll just... So we have it on the screen. Forward the staff report dated May 27th. Whoops, I lost it. Yeah, as soon as we get. And recommend Halifax Regional Council receive a presentation. Great. Councillor Kent.
Thank you. Yeah, that's perfect. What I want to do though is make sure that we congratulate Wendy and Kathy, particularly on the folks that, and share, I'd like you to share my thanks and appreciation for the work that you're all doing. And I was in this website looking around as we were watching, and the last piece was your annual report, I think, and it spoke to the prosperity of Halifax to working together. And that's a really, really key piece. So I appreciate that, and please offer that to the team. I'm also asking our councillor support communicator to research and maybe reach out to you, to create a campaign for us as councillors, to work on the key messages that we could get out in a positive way. And that would be Graham Benjamin that might reach out to you and asking him to see if he could help us get something put together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. There are no other names on the list. I call for the question. All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. If I could extend also my thanks and appreciation to Wendy and Kathy for the presentation and being here. And one of the nicest jobs that I have as a councillor is being on the partnership board. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we'll move on now to the next good news story. Item 13.1.2, our Integrated Tourism Master Plan for 2030, the update. Our staff do have a presentation available for us, and we welcome Ross Jefferson. Hi, Ross. President and CEO of Discover Halifax. Nice to see you. We have Brendan Smithson, Director of Regional Recreation Services here, I think.
And that's it, actually.
Pardon?
That's it.
That's it. That's who we have.
Oh, and,
Okay.
Brian White. He's
Oh.
not on your list, but he's with Ross.
Oh, and Brian White is here with Ross. Thank you.
Oh, here we are. Getting used to the new green light versus the red light on the microphone. Thank you very much, members of the committee. My name is Ross Jefferson. I am the president and CEO of Discover Halifax. And yes, I am joined by Brian White, our vice president of destination development. I do want to recognize Councillor Saint-Amand, who was with us earlier, is also a director on the board of Discover Halifax. And as is Maggie McDonald, a longstanding supporter, and we obviously have a very close relationship through her department. I'd also like to recognize Wendy Luther and the Halifax Partnership. We have a very deep relationship at an operational level and at a strategic level with the Halifax Partnership. Today, we're very excited to share with you the updated Halifax Regional Integrated Tourism Master Plan 2030. This work represents a major update to the first Integrated Tourism Master Plan, which was developed and adopted by Council in 2020. Like the first plan, this plan is a plan for all of industry and all of the stakeholders involved in tourism. As we look back on the first version, we know this plan was a tremendous success. While March 2020, our scheduled launch, was a terrible time to try and launch and celebrate a new plan, if you can recall, it was a great time to have a plan. With shovel-ready projects in hand, we lined up perfectly with many of the provincial, federal, and other programs supporting recovery during the time of the pandemic. We witnessed investments in many important projects like George's Island, Peggy's Cove, and the Mi'kmaq Friendship Center. We also celebrated the opening of a new events office and the evolution of Discover Halifax to providing destination development services in addition to our role as marketing and sales. In total, we were successful, the collective we were successful in advancing over 75% of the projects in the plan, well beyond our expectations. And as a result, we were the fastest jurisdiction to rebound from the pandemic. And today we have taken a lead and are ahead of many of our competing destinations. I would add too that the private sector investment and contributions during the past 5 years have been material and significant, with 5 new hotels having opened, many new experiences and related businesses to the tourism sector also opening. On the slide that you see here, community and industry engagement as a community first plan, which many of you have heard us speak about, it was imperative that we undertook extensive consultation in the development of this updated plan. This included direct engagement with all of our key partners and stakeholders in the industry. It included consultation with the public via website and survey. And finally, we took a traveling roadshow and engagement process out to the regions of HRM. Next slide, thank you. excuse me. As you can see on the slide here, we have maintained much of the same framework from the original ITMP 2030. Our vision is to continue to be everyone's favorite Canadian city, and the three goals that we have in the plan actually come directly from people, planet, and prosperity. We're aiming to grow the GDP by growing the travel industry. We're aiming to build the Halifax brand and support population growth. And we're aiming to enrich the lives of residents. Like the first version of the plan, we are staying with the 6 strategic themes, and I'll speak to those here in a moment. I will add that we were able to add some additional deeper dives into some specific areas to support the plan. We had companion studies for carrying capacity. We did a study on cruise demand. We did a study on car rentals, on accommodations, and on accessibility, and these helped form many of the strategic decisions that were in the strategy that you have before you. Likewise, we were going through quite extensive strategic planning around events. This is a parallel exercise. The new regional event strategy is being developed in partnership with HRM. It's being developed in partnership with Events East, the province, and of course ourselves. The work in this area is also helping inform many of the decisions that are coming forward in this plan. We've spoken a fair amount about the community and industry engagement already, so we'll skip over this slide. Thank you. The regional tourism plans, we had the red dots you see on this map indicate where we had public input sessions. We invited many people that were in the industry and community members, any resident that was interested in learning more about this plan. Tremendous success, and the output from this, we realized the first version of the ITMP done 5 years ago was one plan for the entirety of HRM. The reality is that HRM is very different from region to region. So we have 4 specific mini strategies, if you will, within this plan, the updated plan. The first, as you can see here, is the urban core, which includes Dartmouth, Cole Harbour, Eastern Passage, and of course the Halifax Peninsula. Really the opportunity here, we're looking to establish the urban core as a vibrant, inclusive, year-round tourism destination that showcases our rich cultural heritage, dynamic waterfront, and of course the urban experiences. The priorities in this plan are really focused around waterfront development, connecting and wayfinding, the evening economy, and retail activation is incredibly important. Venue and event infrastructure, and finally, cultural representation and storytelling. In the Gateway region, if you will, Bedford, Sackville, the airport area, this is really the front door to many people that are coming to visit, either through the airport or frankly driving into the region from abroad. We're positioning the Gateway as Halifax's front door, welcoming, well-connected, and increasingly vibrant. We want to make sure everyone has a great welcome and a departure. Some of the things that are important in this particular region through the consultation was integrated mobility and transit. Of course, we have a lot of visitation into this region that is visiting friends and relatives. We do think that there's an opportunity for additional accommodations from the private sector to be built in this region. And finally, the suburban tourism promotion and niche event opportunities in this region were flagged as opportunities. In the Peggy's Cove coastal region, which includes the St. Margaret's Bay, Hubbards, and Sambro, and the broader region. Again, we want to preserve and evolve the Peggy's Cove coastal region as the world-class environmentally responsible coastal destination. What's important in this region is right now we are running into periodic, I would say, over-tourism challenges. In places like Peggy's Cove, we are getting close and sometimes exceeding the carrying capacity of that particular location. It's not happening every day and it's not happening all the time, but we are very interested to make sure that we're not putting undue pressure into those communities. So dispersal of visitors throughout that region and throughout HRM is incredibly important. If you could return back, thank you. Yeah. Environmental stewardship is important, sustainable transportation. We have some wonderful opportunities for trail and coastal infrastructure, and finally, cultural and artistic tourism. Next slide, thank you. And finally, the Eastern HRM, the Eastern Shore and Musquodoboit Valley. A beautiful gem that we have. We're really interested in helping it continue its transformation into Halifax's signature rural escape. Destination defined by pristine nature and adventure experiences. Some of the strategic priorities in this community, this is about basic infrastructure, washrooms. We are working with businesses out there on experience packaging and connectivity. Adventure and nature tourism is incredibly important in this region, as is the cultural heritage interpretation and agro-tourism. So we'll dive a little bit more into the strategic themes. We have a number of initiatives like the first plan. The initiatives are meant to be dynamic, meaning that we will be evolving and changing those initiatives as opportunities present themselves, but staying consistent with the themes from the first plan. The first is making it easy to get here and to visit. We're looking to remove barriers for visitors to get here and to get around. We are reaffirming the strategic imperative for continued air access development. We are recommending projects like adopting the simple payment system for visitors to access the transit system. And we're building new tools to make it easier for visitors to find their way around the regions and easier to book the experiences that visitors love. The next theme is building and enhancing key demand generators. Like any successful business, we need to continue to reinvest and invest in our product and experiences. And in particular, I think what's most important here is that this is not just about investing in the tourism industry. We really see that these initiatives are the prioritized investments. We know that new opportunities always present themselves, and the plan is meant to be dynamic, but the ability to adjust. But we do need to prioritize. We know that financial resources is not limitless, and we have a saying that the best way to kill your great ideas is to spend too much time working on your good ideas. And there's no lack of good ideas in this industry. Some examples of the highest priority projects include the expansion of the urban waterfront, in particular the opportunity to expand and reinvent the Dartmouth waterfront. Also the development of corridor strategies, including the Wild Islands Coast project in the Eastern Shore, and the opportunity to create truly world-class cycling route on the Rum Runners Trail. And finally, the opportunity for Halifax to be host to global sports competitions and hosting of major events. These rely on ensuring that we maintain and build the infrastructure that benefits both the tourism industry and our residents. The next is attracting our highest yield and growth markets. This is pretty simple and straightforward. Again, we could be trying to market and promote to the entire world. What we really believe, we have some amazing opportunities here in positioning HRM as Atlantic Canada's shopping destination. We believe we have untapped opportunity in the events and music space, and finally also in culinary experiences. Next category of vibrant and alive 365. We know that tourism is seasonal here in Nova Scotia. It's a little less seasonal here in the urban core. but we do have opportunity for growth in what we call our shoulder seasons. The strategy for this really is around events, building the infrastructure, supporting infrastructure, and programming that helps us continue building the season all throughout the year. There's also an importance on performing arts. And the opportunity to also, the Vibrant and Live 365 is not just about shoulder seasons. It's also about day of week. We have less visitation Sunday, Monday, and Tuesdays. We're usually at capacity when you get into the Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. So the opportunity to help extend that. Establish and identify and appoint tourism leadership. This really recognizes that sometimes the right partnerships and institutions are not quite in place. So we are working on a couple of initiatives here. The corridor strategy in the Wild Islands Coast will be providing resources to support the volunteer group that's working on that project. We're looking to develop a regional events strategy, which we've spoken of, and that is currently in progress. And finally, establishing governance for the music and tourism economy, we think is a great opportunity for us as well. And finally, responsible tourism, again, being a community-first approach, we have a number of initiatives around supporting the responsible tourism. I think they speak for themselves. Many of them speak for themselves here, but we have been doing a lot of work around carrying capacity. I think one of the most important strategies, we do know that there are pressures coming on the Halifax waterfront and again in Peggy's Cove. The long-term strategy is really to continue to develop public spaces and opportunities for those visitors to extend out into other parts of the communities that have less visitation. That actually that concludes our presentation. We're happy to welcome questions, and again, I'd like to thank the many partners. This strategy is one not just for our industry, but one that is broadly across many partners in parts of the community and levels of government. So I'd like to especially recognize and thank HRM and their work in helping us with this plan as well. So,
Thank you very much, Russ. Our first question comes from Councillor Cuddle.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll put the motion on the floor that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee recommend that Regional Council, one, endorse the, should that be Regional Council or Community Planning? One, endorse the Halifax Regional Integrated Tourism Master Plan 2030, ITMP 2030, Attachment 1 of the staff report dated June 5th, 2025, including consideration for the municipalities' related initiatives as set forth in the ITMP 2030 and as detailed in the discussion section of the staff report dated June 5th, 2025, and 2, direct the CAO to work with Discover Halifax to provide annual updates to Regional Council regarding the ITMP 2030.
Seconded by Vice Chair Steele. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. You know, I get so enthusiastic about this work. I have to kind of be strategic in my questions here, given the time. But yeah, as always, kind of so interesting, so important, and the thought and strategy that goes into this, I greatly appreciate it. So just a couple of questions. One of the things you mentioned in here was about trail development and the opportunities for trail development outside of you know, the urban core. And most of that land, because I know in my district I have some amazing spaces, the Terrence Bay Wilderness area being one of them, places like Duncan's Cove, Crystal Crescent Beach, even close at hand is the Herring Cove Look-Off. But this is all provincial Crown land. And I always find it, there's like a difficult disconnect between what is happening in our urban growth area and the management and programming for these Crown parks, these provincial parks, in terms of adapting to being open year round, because we know that it's not just in the summer that people want to access these spaces. They want to access it like Crystal Crescent Beach. There's opportunity for people to visit that all year round, but the park is closed, which is an accessibility issue. I think it's also an issue in terms of extending our tourism into the shoulder seasons and year round. The places like Duncan's Cove, which aren't parks, they're conservation areas, but they're becoming overrun with people accessing that area, going over private land to do so. And there's just seems to be no conversation about how we can put in parking and trail infrastructure to accommodate that in an environmentally responsible way. You know, the Terrace Bay Wilderness Area, no trailheads, no way signage, not even, you know, unless you're on like a little GPS mapping app, no mapping, which leads to issues around people wandering off in this great park and then getting lost, and we need to call search and rescue. So, you know, I think there's a lot of work to be done there, and the potential is amazing. Like, they're really world-class areas and spaces. But how are you working with the provincial government on trying to present the economic case study for this in regards to tourism, but also supporting our growing city and the desperate need for recreational opportunities? How are you working with them around creating these areas and investing in them to become tourism and economic development assets?
Thank you. Wonderful question. And yes, through the chair to yourself, we have identified a few of the trails that we believe can be elevated to world-class trail recognition. So we would, in doing so, we would be taking those specific trails forward and marketing them abroad. We do believe that in particular, the Rum Runner Trail is one that can be one of those trails. We cannot do that with all of the trails, but we recognize that visitors to this community, as well as residents, the trails, the beaches, and the public spaces are being extensively used. We agree, and through the findings in the report, we understand that many of these are being closed at the end of the traditional season. We think that can be open and expanded as well. So we're sharing that feedback with the province, but our priority right now will be on the development of the trails that can be tourism attractions to themselves. But I think what you're describing is more about ensuring that we have the public spaces as both our population continues to grow and as the visitation to this region continues to grow, that we do have public spaces that are available, that are maintained, parking is there, and that we're not being overrun by people trying to use these great services that we're managing. That's kind of at the core of what we're trying to do right now. So it's important, and although we haven't identified that as a specific initiative, we are sharing that feedback and working with the province of Nova Scotia.
Okay, great. I'll come back with my other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Connell. Vice Chair Steele.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks for the presentation. I want to follow up on one of the comments that you made about the capacity for additional private sector accommodations. What type are you suggesting? I'll also ask another question. You mentioned something about a car rental study. I've been seeing some things in the news about car rentals. I'm wondering, are there still issues out there as there had been back a few years ago? And then finally, you used a word in your presentation that I found absolutely delightful: wayfinding, and more work on wayfinding. So I'm very curious about that, because I do feel there's scope for more investment in that. So I'd love to hear what you have to say on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the number one barrier, one of the top barriers, in fact, the number one barrier right now to the growth of the visitation economy is access to accommodations. We are feeling a lot of strain right now on many of the what would be traditional accommodations being used for things other than hosting visitors. They are serving great causes. They are supporting, in some cases, unhoused. In some cases, they are supporting construction workers. The hospital build is one in particular that is taking quite a few rooms. While we've had great growth, 5 new hotels being built in the last, I think, 5 years, we do need to see more. What's happening right now is we have rates that are climbing to numbers that are not affordable necessarily for many of the traveling public. It's very constrained and difficult for business travelers right now to find when they're traveling, and of course that impacts their convention business as well. So we do believe that the invisible hand works well here, but it takes some time. We expect that we'll see continued investment. This is obviously good for the continued growth of the tax base here, but definitely accommodations is number one. Traditional accommodations being hotels here. We believe in Dartmouth on the waterfront. Sackville is another area. And of course, the non-traditional opportunities, the work that's being done by HRM right now on updating the plans around where you can have a short-term rental or a home rental is incredibly welcomed. And I think it's supporting the industry as well. On your question about the car rental study, yes, this was particularly acute following the pandemic, but we have done some work on that study and understand that the number of cars that we have available here relative to the rest of the country, we seem to have less inventory that's covering a much larger geography. That is definitely a barrier for many people that are flying into the destination. If they can't find a car, they're canceling their trip. We're hoping this is turning a little bit more to the exception, but it is something that we continue to monitor, and we'll be working closely with those agencies. And finally, on wayfinding, incredibly important. We know that there's so much more here in HRM than what most people just come and do their repetitive thing, the thing they're most accustomed to. So we are working hard to make sure they understand the opportunities in all the regions of HRM. We work hard to develop the maps, the brochures, tell the stories about the opportunities in the different regions. And we're also looking at, on the electronic side, how are we using AI? How are we using tools to help visitors book their experiences and get out and explore all of it, what HRM has to offer.
Okay. Thank you. Should I put a motion on the floor? I was considering putting a motion on the floor that we extend the time of the meeting past noon, Chair.
Yep, that was going to be on my list.
That's in order?
Yes, we can extend past noon, but I have in Councillor Kent, how long? So to 12:15, I have to be in Carroll's Corner by 1 o'clock. So we'll go to 12:15. We'll finish this with the consent of the members of the committee. That we will consider deferring item 13.1.3 to a future meeting. Does that need to be done by motion or by consensus?
Probably a motion would be best if that's the direction we're considering going. I would say if we can just make a motion to extend the meeting time, and then once we get to that later item, we can consider a deferral at that time. If we run out of time, then it will be automatically deferred.
Okay, thank you. And Gareth and Richard, I know you've been patiently waiting. Sincere apologies. Nice to see you both, though. Okay, so.
I just did.
Councillor Steele
Yes.
did, so you can have the second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. We continue now. I believe the question goes to Councillor Kent.
Thank you. I have a question around the development of a balanced approach to short-term rental regulations. I just want to know, have you been engaged in the staff reports, the public engagement with staff around what you're thinking is an appropriate space? We've recently, in the regional plan, created some policy. Just wondering if we've landed anywhere near where your thoughts are, that, or does that need reconsideration from your perspective?
Thank you for the great question, Councillor. I'm going to defer this to Brian. He spent most of the time in this, but I will just say that yes, we have been working closely with staff. We do recognize that there's a balance that needs to be done in this area. So we're not advocating just for the unrestricted opening of this opportunity for short-term rentals. We think it's incredibly important to have this balance, and I'll defer to Brian actually to talk about the process that's going on right now.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. We've been working very closely with HRM staff. It's a wonderful working relationship, and so we're in direct communication. The specific initiative in the Tourism Master Plan really talks about creating more opportunities in the rural area of HRM. So that perfectly aligns with the staff recommendations and the motions that have been brought forward to Regional Council through the regional plan. And so we're very supportive of that direction, and we recognize in rural areas, particularly like in the Eastern Shore area, that if you don't have rural accommodations, then the tourism industry is hampered. So we're very thankful for the direction of council. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you as well again for Ross. You're always a pleasure to work with. Brian, I had a chance to meet you recently, and I know there's more opportunities on the horizon that I look forward to hearing more about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. I see no other names on the list, so we'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hands. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you very much, Ross. Thank you very much, Brian. So now the 13.1.3, we have deferring. Motion to defer, Councillor Kent. A seconder, Councillor Cuddle. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 14, there are no motions put forward. In camera, there is none. We had no added items. Any notices of motion? No notices of motion. Then our next meeting is August 21st, 2025, and we had asked for a motion to adjourn. So moved, 11:59 by Vice Chair Steele. We didn't need the extra 15 minutes. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day and a great long weekend.